Hi, everybody. Welcome to your 4.2 Integrated Marketing Communications final lesson. What we're going to do here is go through and just kind of recap what you've done. You do have your final plan due tonight. If you're stuck, this might help. But I really want you to be able to look back on what you did for the month and give yourself a pat on the back because you've really achieved a lot. You've worked hard. You've built a final plan 1 week at a time, and it should be coming together really nicely for you now and be a great portfolio piece for you. So I want to just step through and go over just the parts in general that you have created. And just in case there's any uncertainty at this point, it should provide plenty of visual clarity. By now, you should be able to define integrated marketing campaigns and know that they are actually campaigns that create a message, the same message, through multiple channels. Okay. You know that you can develop creative strategies now. You know how to focus on audience-centered communication. And you know the difference between digital and traditional marketing, their strengths, their weaknesses, and their costs. Integrated marketing communications, one coordinated brand message delivered across every communication channel. It's not the same as a company having a brand and multiple campaigns going on at the same time. These are the same message. It might be delivered slightly different depending on the distribution method, but the overall message, the client brief, is the same. So the process you went through, you researched, you analyzed, you studied the target audience, you looked at case studies every week, you came up with your goals, your objectives, and your ways to get there, your strategies, ways to meet your objectives. You created a creative brief, you created a promotional mix, and you evaluated all of that in a conclusion, right? And you have brought it together in a plan. So you have a cover page now to create. You don't want to put your creative mock-up or whatever creative piece you came up with. You don't want to put that here on your cover. Save that for your idea page in your creative piece section. But you will have a cover page with the company name, your name, and the date. You should also number each page. Right? You're going to add a cover page that we just looked at. You're going to add a table of contents. You're going to create an executive summary, your conclusion, and gather all your references. Your executive summary doesn't need to be long, right? It just needs to give us a high view of what we're about to read. You created a company backgrounder with the company history, the mission statement and values, the products and services, right? The target audience or market, your competitor analysis, whether it was direct competitors or indirect. Direct competitors for Home Depot is going to be Lowe's, for example. But an indirect competitor might be Walmart. It's not, the kind of store that will have construction or any other things like that per se. It doesn't have the same target audience necessarily, but they do carry some similar or crossover items, making it an indirect competition. You can get some things there, but not everything. Financial analysis, you looked at that, and you studied the current marketing strategies. You've just done so much this month. You should be really proud of yourself. You created your SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the company that you were preparing a campaign for. You looked at a potential market, the overall target audience, right? And a potential selected audience. You looked at demographics, who your audience is. You looked at psychographics, why they make the decisions they do. You looked at their needs, what problem they want to solve with the product or service, and behaviors, how they interact with brands, and how they make purchases, how they go about that. You created a customer profile, right? Specific people, you gave background, you described them, and you made them as real as you possibly could, right? So that you can understand the target audience for the company. You created goals and objectives with a marketing campaign that had a long, broad goal that wasn't necessarily time-bound as much. It could be a long-term goal, might be 5 years. And then you had objectives, which were measurable by percentage, by being time-bound, perhaps 12 months. And then you listed strategies for how you might go about achieving that objective. And together, the objectives should get us close to our goal, right, for the company. You created a creative strategy where you had a Venn diagram illustrating the rational and the emotional side of the same individual, right? A description. You came up with a tagline and a statement. You had rejected statements that you listed, some that you thought about, so you had something to choose from. And you created a creative brief from that. You answered, what are we advertising? Whom are we talking to? What do they currently think? What would we like them to think? What is the single most persuasive idea we can convey? Why should they believe it? And are there any creative guidelines? For example, a 60-second TV commercial that would also run on Home Depot's YouTube channel. That was their goal. You're building brand equity. Recognition means trust, consistency, loyalty. You came up with a promotional mix. You looked at traditional distributions and advertising, like advertising, public relations, sales promotions. And you looked at the budget for those and made a comparison. Then you made a creative piece. Some of you wrote scripts. Some of you created mock-ups, billboards, commercials. You had lots of options for these kinds of creative pieces. And then you provided a conclusion for your final plan, right? What its goals are, what the aims are. You summarized maybe with, next time a millennial visits the Home Depot website or walks into the Home Depot store, it will be because there is no other brand that they can count on or trust more for all their home improvement needs than Home Depot. You looked at case studies to help with your plans to see what succeeded, what didn't, You analyze those each week and then integrated all parts 1 through 6 into one professional document. Then you can be very proud of what you've made, and it's something that you can take with you, and a client will be very happy to see it, especially in this day of AI, where you have actually done the research. Remember your APA 7, you're going to have, usually it's double space, but I don't think that's required for this, but you will have all of your citations in your reference page. Consider your design of the whole, the branding. You notice that we had logos in places at the bottom, right? Make sure you check spelling and grammar. Provide any edits that are necessary. Make sure you correct anything that was brought up throughout the month as needing to be corrected, or anything that you saw. So common mistakes might be a weak target audience. If we can't start with the audience, we need to know who that is, so everything is built upon that. Right? We have to have that idea in our mind. An unclear objective that can make strategies difficult, or poor integration of the whole. So, what's the strongest part of your IMC campaign, and why do you think that is? So your key takeaways: research. Always begin with research. Your target audience, knowing who they are, meeting them where they are, knowing where they are. Strategy, always having a plan. Creativity and consistency. Okay, don't forget your references. If you can, you should have a hanging indent, and you should have your in-text citations. Make sure they're in alphabetical order. You can always look at the OWL, the Online Writing Lab from Purdue. If you have any questions, it's very detailed. And you, again, remember, you can always go to Full Sail 1 and do a search for APA workshop, and you'll have a video there. All right, everybody. I'm so proud of what you have created, and I think that you should be too. Make sure you have your reviews done. You have 2 reviews due at the same time. You have your peer review, okay? And make sure you use your RISE model. And then you're also going to have your self-evaluation. And this is where I hope you really dig deep and think about everything that you've done this month and how much work you put into it, okay? Because I don't want you to forget that you are earning something every month towards your degree.